Alright everybody, welcome to today's video, and today's topic we're continuing our discussion on how to upgrade your SRT-4 Dodge Neon. And today we're going to go ahead and give you an overview on ways to upgrade the brakes and the suspension. So we're not quite ready to add the horsepower yet. We've got to get everything else dialed in first. And so if you haven't seen my first video in this series on the basic modifications you should do to your SRT-4 Neon, I'll include a link in the description below for that one, so you can click on it, check it out. And as always, all the items I'm going to go over in this video, I will include links in the description below for you to click on, so that way you can order those if you're ready to do so for your vehicle. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll start with the brakes, and there are a few things that you can do on your brake systems to make them that much better. For starters, without going crazy, you can go ahead and replace the brake fluid if you haven't already done so. Fresh brake fluid is always a good idea on any vehicle, especially a high performance vehicle. As it gets older, it breaks down and doesn't work as well. And if you're doing a lot of high performance driving, a lot of track days, things like that, you probably want to upgrade to a high temp brake fluid like a Motul or a Castrol, and that way you get less brake fade as you repeatedly abuse the brakes with high heat situations that you see on the track. Now, another thing to do to help reduce your brake fade on the track and other high performance driving activities are stainless steel brake lines. And so the stock brake lines are a rubber brake line, and of course they can expand under heavy braking conditions, which can result in reduced braking capabilities. So if you replace your brake hoses with stainless steel lined hoses, that definitely helps reduce that situation. Now from there, the actual brakes themselves, a couple of things you can do are upgrade the rotors. You can go ahead and put like slotted rotors on. Personally, I went ahead and upgraded the rotors on mine and went with slotted Stoptech rotors. I also went ahead and upgraded the brake lines as well, put the stainless steel brake hoses on there. It just helps with the brakes, as I mentioned a minute ago. And then from there, the other thing you can do on the brakes after you get your brake lines replaced and your rotors replaced are your brake pads, which is probably one of the first things you should do, is make sure your pads are adequate. And if you're looking for a high performance brake pad, you can go with something like Stoptech makes brake pads, and Hawk makes a variety of brake pads depending on your application. And so putting a good brake pad on there, as well as upgrading the rotors and replacing the brake hoses with stainless steel lines, all go to make your brake system work that much better for you and help give you a more consistent brake system for repeated usage in situations like track days and other high performance driving events. So now, of course, from here, if you want to do anything else to the brakes, you're really looking at upgrading to a big brake kit, and you're starting to get into a much more expensive area. Stoptech makes a great big brake kit for these cars, puts a 4-piston caliper on the front. The downside to the Stoptech big brake kit is you can no longer run the stock 17-inch wheels, or if you have an ACR, the stock 16-inch wheels. So if you want to go with a big brake kit like one from Stoptech, you're going to have to go and get a new set of wheels that are like an 18-inch diameter. There might be some 17s that clear, but to be safe, you probably want to go with an 18-inch wheel. Now, there are other companies like Wilwood that also make brake kits for these cars. They work pretty well, but for me, I've been a big fan of Stoptech for a lot of vehicles, and so that's why I recommend them. And so those are really all the things to do on your brake system. Of course, making sure all the other components are in good functioning order. As I mentioned in my first video in this series, we're assuming that you've got a functioning car that's in good operating condition to start with before you start modifying it and upgrading it. Now, of course, if you're going through the process and you have to replace components that are worn out, putting upgraded components on there is the perfect time to do that. So on the suspension side of things, there are a lot more components involved, and there are a lot of options and different routes you can take to upgrade the suspension. So for starters, an easy thing to do is install strut tower braces both on the front and the rear. And the nice thing about a strut tower brace is it ties in the 2 strut towers on each side of the car, and it just gives your chassis that much less flex, makes it that much more rigid. I've installed the Mopar Performance ones on mine, and while you can't really feel the difference in the seat of the pants, it definitely definitely helps with the structural rigidity of the vehicle. Now from here, simple things you can do are like replace rubber bushings with polyurethane bushings, especially like on your sway bar end links or your lower control arms. And then also if you want to go and upgrade your sway bars, you can do that as well. Putting larger diameter sway bars on the car will definitely help with the performance of the handling. I haven't upgraded my sway bars yet, but I plan on going with like the Mopar Performance ones because they are adjustable depending on what type of conditions you're seeing. Hotchkiss also makes some upgraded sway bars, and there are a few other companies as well. I think iBach offers some upgraded sway bars as well. Now on the lower control arms, you can also go and replace them with upgraded units. I've installed Darrell Cox Racing lower control arms on the front of my car. And the reason I did that was in part because I broke my lower control arms. But also with their units, they replaced the rear mount bushing with a spherical bearing, and they replaced the front bushing with a Delrin insert. And what these do is it helps keep the lower control arm aligned where it should be. So when you're going hard into a corner, you don't get a lot of flex and having your alignment go all wonky on you while you're going through that corner really hard. Now, if your budget allows, you could also go with like a real tuned tubular lower control arm, but they're about double the price, I think, of the Darrell Cox Racing upgraded lower control arms. Now on the rear, you can also upgrade those lower control arms. Darrell Cox Racing also offers adjustable units, so that way you can get your alignment in the rear where you set up exactly where you want it, whereas the factory ones are just solid bars, and so you can't really adjust the alignment on those at all. And then of course you can also get adjustable strut bars for the rear. Mopar Performance offers some of those. They're also not that expensive. I think they're like $50 or $60 a pair. So putting those in there also helps give you more flexibility in the alignment capabilities of the rear suspension. So from here, another thing you can do is upgrade the wheels, and what you can do with this is going to a lighter weight wheel. Having less weight on the wheel has less rotating mass on each corner, and also it frees up some horsepower, and also just makes it easier for the car to be going through these corners. And so if you're going to be upgrading the wheels, just keep in mind on the weight, and also if you want to be doing a brake upgrade later, or at the same time, just making sure that the wheel that you choose is gonna clear the new calipers that you put on the vehicle. Now from here with the wheels goes a set of tires. So one of the biggest things that you can do to upgrade the performance of your car is change your tires out and put a high quality performance tire on there. Now the downside to putting like a soft compound tire on there that's going to give you a lot of traction and handling capabilities is it's going to be softer and wear more, so you're not going to get the mileage out of it. A perfect example is on a normal all-season tire, you can probably get 60 or 70,000 miles out of it, whereas your soft compound tires that are designed for high performance driving are going to last like 20,000 miles. So you have to take that into consideration as well, whether you want more high performance or if you want more wearability on those tires. And of course, what weather applications you're going to have are going to be a factor as well, because summer tires typically perform better than your winter tires do in terms of your handling performance for high performance driving. Now from here, the last thing to talk about, the big thing, are your shocks. And the stock shocks were pretty good, especially if you get ACR, you get the Tokiko adjustables, but let's face it, they're like 20 years old almost. No, they're between 15 and 17 years old at this point, and so you're probably due to replace your struts. And so that's actually what happened on mine, is the struts were all worn out, and when I put the poly bushings on the lower control arms, it put too much stress at the joint for the rear mount, and I snapped the lower control arms. So a word to the wise, if you're upgrading the bushings on your lower control arms, make sure your shocks are in good operating condition and not worn out like mine were. So one thing you could do to improve the handling is, with the stock struts, assuming they're in good condition and not worn out, is put lowering springs on there that have a stiffer spring rate on them. So you can put like Mopar Performance on there, iBach, and there's a few companies out there that make stiffer springs that also lower the ride of the vehicle. Now, what I've done on mine is, since my struts were worn out, I ended up going with a Koni insert. Now, The Koni insert works really well. They're nice and adjustable, and I really like how they perform, especially in conjunction with the Mopar Stage 1 springs. The downside though is the installation is not straightforward. And most of your Koni applications, or most of your replacement strut applications, just take the old one out and put the new one in. You might have to disassemble it, take the spring off and put it on your new strut, but generally that's about it. Well, for the SRT-4 and the Koni Struts, you actually have to take your stock strut out, cut the end off of it, pull all the guts out from the strut, and put in the new Koni insert. And it's a bit of a hassle, and it's definitely time consuming. And so what I did when I did that on mine was I got a second set of struts that were already blown out, so that way I could cut those apart and install the new Koni inserts, so that way I could just take the old struts out and put new assembled ones in and not risk having the car down for any extended length of time. Now, finding blown out struts may or may not be a bit of a challenge depending on where you're at and what type of an SRT-4 community you have near you. Luckily for me here in California, there are a lot of owners out here, and so finding a set of blown out struts was actually pretty easy. Now, the other option, of course, if you don't want to go with another strut, is going to coilovers. Now, coilovers, of course, you get what you pay for, and if you go and buy the cheap eBay set of coilovers, it's not going to work anywhere near as well as if you order, say, a set of like KW Racing coilover system. And there's a wide-ranging set of coilovers out there, ranging from like a few $100s up to several $1,000s. I discovered that KW has several coilover sets available for the SRT-4, ranging from like I think $1,100–1,200 up to like over $3,000. And of course, Mopar Performance offers, at least they used to offer, Stage 2 and Stage 3 coilovers. I believe they were also made by KW. And so there's a lot of options out there. A lot of people seem to like the BC Racing coilovers. Personally, next time I go to do struts on this one, I will be upgrading to the KWs because KW makes an amazing coilover, and in fact they actually made the coilovers for the ACR Vipers, and so it's a quality unit, and I know that it's going to work really well in the car. But of course it comes at a cost, and I think the ones that I'm looking at for this are close to $1,800 as of making this video for you. Alright, and so that's a brief overview on your brake and suspension upgrade options for your SRT-4 Neon. I hope you found this information informational as always. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button, give us that thumbs up. It helps me out with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, a lot of the items that I've mentioned here in this video, I will put links in the description below, so that way you can check them out and see for yourselves what the actual components are that I'm talking about. And if you have any questions at all, have any thoughts, go ahead and put those in the comment section below, because I read all the comments and I will definitely respond to all of them as well. And as always, if you want to be kept up to date with all my future uploads, don't forget to smash that subscribe button down below and ring that notification bell as well, so that way YouTube will keep you up to date of all the videos I do in the future. And as always guys, I will see you in the next video.